Well, hello friends, Marcus D coming at you with another brand new video I'm producing for the Great Questions group. And today I'm bringing to you part 6 in this series I've been doing on science. And we're actually going to be discussing another law in the series of laws that I used as I examined the models of a creation model and the evolution models that I've referred to before. I'm actually going to be referring to them again in this video. But we're going to talk about the law of cause and effect, all right? And we're going to keep this very simple. It's another universal law, folks, that science has proven. It's one of the best proved laws in science. It's never, as far as we've known, never been disproved. It always works. It's always been in effect, as far as we know. It actually applies to a lot of different aspects of life, but we're going to focus in on the scientific aspect of it as how it relates to these two models that we've been talking about, all right? And I'm going to refer to them, those models again, those graphs, if you will, that we talked about in a previous session. But what I want to do, first of all, is I just want to define this law. And again, we're going to keep this very simple. Because it is simple, folks. It's something that we intuitively know operates in the world in which we live, all right? And it simply states, this law simply states that for every effect in this universe that we see, any type of an effect, there has to be an adequate cause for that effect. There has to be an adequate cause that created that effect. And that adequate cause is a cause that both precedes the effect, in other words, was before it, and that it also is greater than the effect, all right? So it precedes the effect and it's greater than the effect, all right? And this is something, again, that if we take a look at the world in which we live in, we know that that's the case, all right? That everything, nothing, again, folks, look, as I began to really look at these laws, and I began to look at the reality around me, the laws themselves, before I actually even really looked at anything else, the laws themselves kind of proved to me that, time and chance by itself, in other words, nothing times nobody could not possibly equal everything. All right. And before I even actually looked at what was going on. So with this particular law, what I want to do is I want to go back to these graphs that we referred to in in one of the previous videos that I did when we actually graphed the models. And what I want to do, folks, again, I have these 5 laws, 5 principles that I used when I was going through this examination, if you will, of the reality in which we live in, all right? Now, let's go back again. You remember the creation model, and again, I'm not going to over-explain or re-explain these because I did in the previous video. These are the 2 evolution models, and all I really want to point out in these, all right, is that in the evolution model, again, at the very beginning, we end up with nothing, and what we've had over the course of time is a net increase in all the structure and order and everything that we see in the universe that we observe today, folks. All right. And regardless of which method is postulated, the net result is the same. Nothing ultimately, as time has progressed, the complexity, we've got a very, very complex universe today with living systems in it, non-living systems that have all arisen by chance, okay? No directing agency, and again, explaining how does all the power get here? How does the time get here? How does the space get here? The living systems, et cetera, et cetera. The creation model says an outside agency, a mind, God, wound this all up. He injected created all of this right from the beginning. And then everything, again, because of the curse, because of the fall of man, there has been this universal decline now, which again, we demonstrated. We looked at the first 2 laws. We looked at the law of conservation. We graphed them, if you will. We drew them out, and this universal law of decay, all right? And we looked at the 2 models in light of these 2 laws. And for me, it was quite clear, and for a lot of other people, that this model fit the evidence way better than these 2 did, all right? Now, let me point out something again, too. Before I even get into, we're going to go back to that. Folks, there are a lot of people out there that you can dump a truckload of evidence on them, and they either can't see it or don't want to see it because they don't like the implications of there being a God. They don't like the implications of the realization that, they're not just a random accident and there is somebody who they're accountable to, all right? And look, the bottom line is, let me remind you, I'm not trying to convince anybody of this evidence. I didn't take a lot of convincing. I wanted to know what the truth was. I was willing to go where the evidence pointed to, and it just seemed to me before I even started out that there had to be a creator. But once I started seeing how the actual scientific evidence pointed to that, I was quickly convinced. All right, and I'm going to wrap up with one of the main reasons why I wanted to be, which I've actually already referred to in some of these videos. But getting back to these now, let's get down here to this law of cause and effect. All right. If you look at these models, what these models are showing, all right, in every instance is an inadequate cause for every effect, because you've got a smaller cause producing a larger, more complex effect. That's what these two models are showing. Here, you have an adequate cause, a far greater preceding cause that created all this, and now everything's running down. All right? That's as simple as it is, folks. That law, this law of cause and effect, when you looked at these models, it was as clear as can be to me as to which model this evidence, this scientific law pointed to more effectively. All right? Now, let me share something else with you too. All right? All these different laws, we're going to go through two more of them. We're going to talk about the law of information. We're going to talk about where information comes from, because we've got an enormous amount of information locked up, not only in us, but every living system in this biosphere, if you want to call it, on this planet. All right, that because it's all again, it's all predicated on this code, complex code. But where does information come from? We have in this information era we're living in right now. We've developed laws that kind of govern information now that we've quantified. All right, and then we're going to talk about the P factors. Even though I've actually already done a video, I'll probably refer back to that video, but just talk about the implications really quickly. But as far as this cause and effect, let me share a couple things with you. What kind of a cause do we have to be looking at for this universe that we live in? It's interesting. The universe is huge, right? 20 billion light years across. We know it's expanding. A lot of times it's really easy to look at the size of this universe, and our little planet, and we're the pale blue dot. We're really insignificant, this insignificant little ball of mud out here, all right? Well, if you just looked at the size, if that's all you were looking at, and you were looking out at the largeness compared to us, it's not, too unreasonable to feel that way in some ways. But all we have to do is shift our gaze to the very, very small. All right. And what we see almost on the very, very small, and again, I shared with you that video that I saw many, many years ago. Is an older video, but still a very, very well done one. There are a lot of more modern ones, but they illustrate that we're human beings. We're kind of transfixed between this infinity of the large almost and this infinity of the small, because when we start going down to the small, as we talked about the atoms and now the parts of the atoms, it's unbelievably, amazingly small. All right. And so we're like, we're compared to how small it is, we're huge, but compared to the universe, we're small. What's going on with all this? All right. But here's the point I want to make. All right. And we've kind of talked about this. We've alluded to it. The adequate cause for this entire effect, the effect of the very, very large and the effect of the very, very small, and the intricate detail, the operation of this, the power locked up in the very, very vast, in the very, very small. When we talked about the atoms, we talked about the power locked up in these tiny little, astounding power, all right, that we don't really have access to. There's power operating in this universe that we only have access to a fraction of it. I've used the term, we are power paupers, all right? But in the light of cause and effect, what's really going on here? What kind of adequate cause must be responsible for this universe that we see? again, this universe of the very small, this universe of the very large. You know, it's interesting. I heard one time a scientist talk about this mass relationship, all right, between the atom. The relationship between the mass of an atom and the mass of the man is approximately the same as the mass of a man, a human being, and the mass of the earth, all right? So in other words, you know, a human being compared to the earth is the same as an atom compared to a human being. But then the mass of the earth has the same relationship to the mass of the universe, all right? Now, and I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. There's a lot of things like that that come together with this harmony. As a matter of fact, let me read you a quick quote. If I didn't get rid of my notes here, which I hope I didn't. Let me pause this because I lost my notes somehow. What happened to my notes? Hang on. Okay, I'm back. Here we go. And this is actually a quote by Albert Einstein. Most of you know who he is, all right? Listen to this. The harmony of natural law reveals an intelligence of such superiority that compared with it, all the systematic thinking of human beings is utterly insignificant. Did you catch that? The harmony of natural law reveals an intelligence of such superiority that compared with it, all the systematic thinking of human beings is utterly insignificant. All right? And what he's referring to there, folks, is just kind of along the lines of what I was referring to in this this harmony that exists in these various relationships. Okay, and I just touched on a few. I mean, the way that the law of conservation, the law of decay, the law of cause and effect operate, the conditions that are required to overcome this law of decay, the way the information fits into it. And again, there's this whole litany of relational realities. But you know, Albert Einstein, you know, was a fairly intelligent individual. And for him to make a comment like that points to this cause. You see, because when we look at the very, very large and the very, very small, and this law demands an adequate cause for all of this. All right, we got to contemplate that, all of this. And so, with that in mind, what kind of an adequate cause are we looking at? We're looking at an adequate cause that had the capability of injecting all the power that we see in the operating in the universe, the order, the structure, capable of orchestrating, manipulating that power on such an incredibly small, detailed level, like we see in all the atoms and all the molecules, the information that's coded in here. You know, folks, look, you know, the cause and effect works for beauty. You know, it's mid-October in the mid-Atlantic when I'm doing this video, and I'm always blown away by the trees when they start turning color. You know, folks, what's the adequate cause for that? You know, a lot of, you know, folks just go, oh, there's nothing. You know, just saying something doesn't make it so. All right. Based on what? All right. And if we look at this law states that for every effect, there has to be an adequate cause. That, you know, even though this is a wounded, tainted world, there's a remnant of beauty in here. The flowers that we see, the stars, the sunset, people, okay, on and on it goes. The leaves. Why are all the trees and all the colors and all the plants? It's just amazing to me. It always blows me away. Where did that come from? The adequate cause for aesthetics, for beauty, has to be beautiful. All right, and all of these aspects, relational. We're gonna talk about that. Relational. I kind of did a little bit in that video series, the Great Questions Quest. I wanted to know if this God had communicated. All right, but folks, the point is cause and effect. If we follow it out, when we look at the effect of this cosmos. And when I mean the cosmos, I mean everything in it, not just the universe itself, but everything in it. That's what the cosmos really means. The revealed universe, space, mass, time, reality, the atoms, the people, all the aspects of it, okay? We have to have a cause for all of that both precedes it and is greater than all of that. All right. And as I've said before, the only adequate cause for all of this is a mind, a being with a capacity that is so vastly beyond anything we can imagine. We might as well take the largest concept of the word God that we can think of and apply it to that adequate cause. So once again, for me, when I was looking at all this not just me, there's lots and thousands of people, scientists and philosophers and that have looked at this and said, yeah, that's what it is. Again, I didn't do this in a vacuum. I just really started looking at the evidence that was being presented by both groups of people, all right, to see which makes more sense. And all you have to do is be slightly open-minded and look at the world and look at this information, and you come to the same conclusion because it's pretty airtight. Now, let me just wrap up with this. Why is that exciting? Why did I want this to be the case? And let me remind you again, I'm just sharing with you parts of my journey. I'm not trying to convince anybody of this, all right? We all have to take care of our own future, all right? I was doing this for me because I knew I was terminal. I knew I wasn't going to last forever. Once my friend died at 19, I told the story about that. And, just we don't get out of here alive. I just recently lost my pop, back in March. Did a video on that you can find and but the point is that's reality. All right. You don't have to have somebody that well die to realize, that's just the way it goes. I mean, my goodness, the last video I did that one in the cemetery, that church that I visit, from time to remind me. Because it's so easy to act like we're immortal. We're going to, no one wants to talk about this stuff, but it's real. But here's the point. Okay, I hope there would be a heaven. All right, I hope there would be like I was taught as a kid, a reality beyond this one that would be perfect, that would be something way better than this one, something permanent, something where it was just better. I mean, again, I don't want to elaborate. Because again, it just I just wanted something better. And look, knowing that there's a God, there is now an adequate cause for heaven being real. All right. Otherwise, we're just making believe. Otherwise, we're just pretending. It's just amazing to hear all these different people that want to believe there's something better or something else, and but they don't have any cause for it. Okay, And really, again, it doesn't really matter what we think. It's what's real. That's why I say, this isn't religion, folks. This is reality. All right? These are things that are real. And I wanted to know that there was really an adequate cause for a far, far better reality. And if that God is strong enough to make this world, and he has communicated. See, that's the other thing. I needed to find out, is he going to do that? And he's told us that he has. He is going to. And he's big enough and strong enough. He is the adequate cause that can make a far, far better reality, that can give us those new bodies that won't wear out, that will be so far beyond these physical ones that we have now. New minds, way beyond these. Okay, a reality where nothing does. He's going to eliminate most of these laws of decay, that law of decay, that big one right there, and a bunch of other things too. And we're going to have a perfect reality. And again, he has the ability to do that. And so that's what excited me. So that's why, again, these studies were just invaluable to me, because it made my faith airtight. It's a faith, okay? But it's a faith based on tremendous evidence, and it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And it paints that picture of a blessed hope. The Scripture calls it a blessed hope that we have, joy unspeakable, because we know, okay, we may have some little trials and tribulations down here while we walk this life, but if we have been reborn, if we placed our faith and trust in Christ, and folks, let me just remind you again. All my videos, some classic audios, some writing I've been doing, I plan to do some more, are all on my website, greatquestionsgroup.org, markdemateo.com. Just do a search, Great Questions Group. It'll come up. All the videos are on there. That series that I did, the Great Questions Quest, it teaches you the key that unlocks that reality. Because not everybody is just automatic. Everybody's going to be swept out of this reality. But it's a question of what new reality you're going to be swept into, because not that this glorious eternal reality that this heaven, not everyone gets in there by default, folks. And we need to know about that. All right? And I talk about that extensively in that 7-part series that's posted on there. So if you haven't heard it, check it out. And you know what, folks? It doesn't hurt to listen to it several times. I remember when I was in business, I had these favorite things I would listen to. I'd listen to them over and over again. I still have some things to get it into my noodle in here, okay? And so I'd recommend you check those things out. But we do have a glorious future that we can access, but we've got to access it. We got to know about it and access it, okay? So that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this as a labor of love for those of you that are interested. And because, again, to whom much is given, much is required. And, my great God has commissioned me to do this. He's commissioned all of us that know this stuff to pass it on. And so that's what I'm trying to do. Again, as I often say, being part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Okay? So God bless you guys. Enjoy sharing it with you and look forward to, our next session. Okay? So God bless you in the meantime. Bye-bye.